It was the middle of March in 1996 that the goal was put into place. That's when the 1995-96 OBU Bison were knocked out of the NAIA National Tournament in the second round, making it 2 straight years of early exits from Tulsa. Bison coaches, players, and fans knew they were a much better team than they had showed in 2 games. They knew they could compete with anybody in the nation. And the tournament would prove that, as the eventual national champion in 1996, Oklahoma City University had lost 2 out of 3 games to the Bison that season. So the mission was made. With virtually everyone returning plus 2 more stars being added to the team, the OBU Bison had their goal for 1997. They were not going to let pressure get to them. They were going to lay it all on the line. They would be reaching for the top. The Bison started out of the gate with the Fury, taking on 3 teams from Texas in their first 3 games. OBU showed that the best brand of NAIA basketball was played north of the Red River, averaging 129 points a game while only giving up 73 points per contest. Hot hands included Eric Cardenas and Mike Henry in the scoring column, while Bobby Connor showed there would be no sophomore jinx on him. The captain of the Bison, Kevin Morrissey, was back to his domination of the boards, already averaging over 10 a ball game. After dismantling Arkansas Baptist College, the Bison faced their first real test of the early season when they hosted Northwestern. The Rangers gave the Bison a scare at home, but the first dose of Bison magic propelled OBU to the 89-86 win. After the 5-0 start, OBU hit the road for the first time when they traveled to the Union Classic in Jackson, Tennessee, where they picked up wins 6 and 7 behind Quinn Woldridge's outside shooting and Eric Cardenas' inside game. The Bison returned home to host the first Domino's Classic, rolling over Southwest Assemblies of God and Messenger College. It was 2 games where everyone got involved. After much hard work and practice, the reserves were getting their chance to shine at the Noble Complex. That set up the Saturday night matchup with Southwestern. OBU's balance and overall talent led to an easy 90-60 win, bumping the Bison record to 10-0. The Paul Hansen Classic was next for OBU as the Bison would take on national runner-up Georgetown, Kentucky, and Auburn Montgomery, Alabama. The matchups were supposed to be close games between national powers, but it looked like the same old story with OBU cruising to wins. Kevin Morrissey had set aside his offense for others all season, but against Georgetown, the senior from Oklahoma City put on a show in his hometown. There wasn't a drop-off in Saturday's game either, as Eric Cardenas won the battle of big men, and OBU was now 12-0 and preparing to move up the polls. The final home game of 1996 was a tune-up for OBU and a chance for Lamont Ford to once again spend a lot of time above the rim. He paced OBU with 22 points and 8 rebounds as the Bison said goodbye to the Noble Complex until the new year. The Bluegrass State was OBU's next destination as they took part in the Jim Reed Classic at Georgetown, Kentucky. The College of West Virginia proved to be one of the most athletic teams OBU would face all season long, but Bobby Connor's alley-oop jam from Clay Martin's midcourt pass showed that the Bison had a few athletes of their own. A great game down the wire saw OBU pull out the 111-103 win. Saturday night was a trip to the Twilight Zone. The Tigers of Georgetown, Kentucky had seen OBU end their season in 1993 and 94 before whipping them in Oklahoma City only a month earlier. In a tournament with a lot of sentiment for a former coach, the home cooking was served up, but the Bison played as gutsy as any team could have in the 93-84 defeat, giving OBU their first mark in the loss column. But lessons learned that night would help propel the Bison later on when they faced other challenges. The new year was here, and the Bison vaulted in the polls from their preseason spot of 6th all the way to number 2. OBU picked up where they had left off, running over Paul Quinn College and National Christian before facing unbeaten East Central. Some bandwagon journalists would later tab the Tigers' Chuck Liston as the best small college player in the state of Oklahoma. Although in a head-to-head matchup with Eric Cardenas, the big fellow would put up 30 points in the 91-82 win. His efforts also earned him the honors of NAIA National Player of the Week. And with the win, phase 1 of the season would be over. The Bison stood 17-1 through non-conference play and entered the Sooner Athletic Conference on a roll. The Bison remained number 2 in the nation as the SAC play got underway. OBU began conference play with the rout of John Brown. Lamont Ford got off to a great conference start with 27 points. On the boards, Eric Cardenas and Kevin Morrissey combined for 31 rebounds, 10 more than the entire John Brown team. It was a picture-perfect start to a wild ride in conference play. And with the win, the Bison would move into the nation's top spot, which would make them even more of a target than they already were. But as the Bison would prove, they were up to the challenge. The Bison made the trip out west with their new ranking, and once again, Kevin Morrissey, just like he had in 1996, showed that he loved the friendly confines of Wayland Baptist University. His 19 points led 5 different Bison in double figures in the 95-87 win. The Saturday afternoon matchup with Levitt Christian was typical as the Chaparrals used the three-pointer to stay tied at halftime. But the second half saw OBU's depth prove to be too much as Mike Hendren and Bobby Connor led OBU in scoring off the bench. OBU is now 3-0 in conference play with 2 key road wins. Next up was a home matchup with the rival Eagles of Oklahoma Christian. Although not as talented as other Eagle teams in the past, OC was up to the challenge and wanted to win another game at the Noble Complex. For a good part of the game, it looked like they would. Freshman Jay Mock's three-pointer gave the Eagles a 75-67 lead with 5 minutes to go. But that's when the Bison jumped on the back of the big man. Eric Cardenas took over down low with 8 straight points, and then Clay Martin, who was used to getting assists to Eric, got one back from the big man and hit a critical three-pointer. Free throws down the stretch iced it as OBU improved to 4-0 in conference play with the 87-83 win. There would be no letdown as OBU went to Bethany to take on Southern Nazarene. The Bison hadn't lost at Broadhurst since 1993, and all of the wins had been exciting. 1997 was no different. A beyond-capacity crowd saw OBU come out on fire, leading by as many as 16 points in the first half. But an ice-cold second half saw the Redskins make a valiant comeback and actually maintain an 11-point lead with under 8 minutes to go. And with the game very much in doubt, OBU's players rallied around their coach, Bob Hoffman. A technical foul was assessed to Coach Hoffman with 3:52 to play, and after the free throws, OBU trailed 82-75. But the Redskins would not score again until the 25-second mark as the Bison went on a 12-0 run. The Redskins were not about to roll over, though, as three-pointers got them back in it. And after OBU lost the ball underneath the basket, the Redskins had a chance to win it. But Robert White's three-pointer rolled off the rim, and the Bison escaped with an 89-87 win. It was truly a great team effort as 6 Bison scored in double figures. OBU was now 22-1 on the season and 5-0 in conference play. Next up was a trip to Phillips, where OBU had not won since 1993. The Haymakers were without 2 of their stars, and you could tell early on. But a big second half saw a crazy game get even wilder as the Haymakers gave the Bison their first conference loss. The loss at Phillips was only bad news for Oklahoma City University. The arch-rival Chiefs had to come take on a proud OBU team coming off a 19-point loss. The Chiefs were manhandled by the Bison in a way they never had been as an NAIA team. The most successful small college program in the 90s trailed OBU by 27 at the half and ended up losing 110 to 68. It was a night Bison fans cherished and OBU players and coaches surely enjoyed. The Bison would get back on the road as they began Phase 2 of the Sooner Athletic Conference schedule, and playing John Brown at home was a lot different than playing them in Shawnee. Shad Miller came out smoking, and the breaks were all going to John Brown. OBU had every reason to pack it up and accept the loss. But that's not in the heart of the Bison. Despite being down by as many as 11 in the second half, OBU chipped away and found themselves tied with 4 minutes to go. The Bison then looked to Mike Hendren for a big three-point play, and then Clay Martin iced the game at the line. An 11-3 run to end the game gave OBU the 79-71 win and a 24-2 record. It was back home to host Lubbock Christian for the Bison, and the Noble Complex had never been friendlier. Kevin Morrissey and Clay Martin each posted double-doubles as OBU cruised to an 82-60 win. It was pretty much the same scenario as Wayland Baptist came to town Saturday. Mike Hendren was able to race down the court for a team-high 21 points in the 106-85 win. The Bison were now set to end the season against 4 teams that could all be considered rivals. First up was a trip to the Eagles' Nest. Most games at Oklahoma Christian were nail-biters, but not on this night. While Eric Cardenas proved himself against Brad Weedle in the middle, Clay Martin showed he still has a shooter's touch as he connected on all 4 of his three-point attempts in the second half. OBU was the winner, 80-63, and now 27-2 on the season and closing in on the Sooner Athletic Conference regular season title. Southern Nazarene came to the Noble Complex next for their final conference road game of the year. With the win at OBU, they would finish unbeaten on the road, but the Bison were perfect at home and did not want to end their streak. More importantly, the SAC title was on the line, and you could tell. A fierce battle came down to the wire again as Eric Cardenas led the way with 23 points. Kevin Morrissey gave OBU a late lead with a layup, followed by a missed shot by Snoo with 10 seconds to go. But Clay Martin's free throw would not fall, so the Redskins would have another chance. It was an eerie resemblance to the first contest, but this time, OBU's defense did not even allow Southern Nazarene to get a shot attempt in the final seconds. OBU 78, Southern Nazarene 76. One more win, and the SAC title would belong on Bison Hill. It was a typical slugfest against Phillips as the Bison looked to avenge their only conference loss. The Haymakers tried to spoil senior night as OBU looked to close out the home schedule unbeaten. And for a while, it was at Phillips' pace. But OBU went inside as Eric Cardenas led the way with 22 points and 8 rebounds, while Kevin Morrissey added 19 points and 8 rebounds. With the 78-72 win, OBU claimed the Sooner Athletic Conference regular season title and a school record 29th regular season win. Now it was on to OCU before the postseason tournament began. The loss at OCU was not the way the Bison wanted to end the season, but this was a mature team that was able to keep things in perspective after losing to the Bitter Chiefs 110-88. Besides, both of OBU's earlier season losses were followed up by big wins. Round 1 of the Sooner Athletic Conference tournament would prove to be the same. Wayland Baptist came in as the 8th seed, hoping for a miracle to keep their season alive. After 3 close games to begin the quarterfinal round, the Bison coasted to a 122-83 win over the Pioneers. Quinn Woldridge got a shooting touch back as he pumped in 21 points to lead OBU. Round 2 would be a third time to face Oklahoma Christian, and it's never easy to beat a team for a third time. The Eagles had the advantage of hosting the Sooner Athletic Conference tournament, so the semifinal matchup was a home game for them. It was also a do-or-die game as the Eagles needed to win or the season would be over. Desperation was apparent as every time Oklahoma Christian fell behind, they would find a way to get back in the game. After Danny Brown's baseline jumper tied the ball game, Kevin Morrissey had a chance to win it in regulation. His shot was off the mark, though, and the game was headed to overtime. In the extra frame, OBU could not find the mark. Missed opportunities for the Bison led to a late foul with 10 seconds to go on Oklahoma Christian senior star Brad Weedle. The big man went to the free throw line with his team owning a 1-point lead. 2 free throws and the Bison would need a 3-pointer to tie the game and send it to a second overtime. Weedle missed on the first and then missed on the second. With many offensive stars on OBU's team, someone could win the game with one final shot. But Kevin Morrissey, who missed in regulation, got his chance at redemption.
9 seconds to go. Plays in the front court. Comes across the left side. Spins back in the lane. Crosses to Kevin Morrissey. He drives down. Goes up 5 foot on the way. And good! Bison wins! Bison wins! Bison wins! Bison wins!
The SAC Defensive Player of the Year came up with one of the biggest offensive plays of the season as the Bison won it 82-81 in overtime and moved to the SAC Tournament Championship. After beating Southern Nazarene by 2 points on 2 different occasions during the regular season, the Bison would face them one more time, and on this night it was all Bison. Just about every OBU star was hitting from inside and out as the Bison cruised to a 101-83 whipping of the Redskins. Lamont Ford was named the tournament MVP with his 18 points and 15 rebounds. Eric Cardenas had another big night in the middle. Bobby Connor and Quinn Woldridge were the dynamic duo from downtown, and Clay Martin pumped in a double-double with points and assists. OBU was now ready to return to Tulsa and the 1997 NAIA National Tournament. OBU's goals leading up to the tournament were reached with a great non-conference run, a regular season title in the Sooner Athletic Conference, followed by winning the conference postseason tournament. A number 3 seed would give the Bison a favorable draw and a guarantee for primetime games. The national tournament began for the Bison when they played Lindsey Wilson College of Kentucky. Although the Bison were known for their size, the Blue Raiders had 3 6'10" players of their own, which threw the Bison out of sync early. OBU's goal all season long was to stay in Tulsa for a while, but the opening round game had an eerie resemblance to the last 3 national tournament games for OBU, which had seen the Bison lose 2 of those. After holding on to a 37-31 halftime lead, head coach Bob Hoffman was hoping his team could pull away in the second half. 2 guys who had left Tulsa with a bad taste in their mouth last year, Clay Martin and Kevin Morrissey, decided to take over late in the game. Martin, the Tulsa native, and Morrissey, the former ORU basketball star, scored 16 of OBU's last 19 points, most of those coming at the free throw line. The leading scoring team in the nation struggled to a 74-68 win, but as the Bison would soon learn, it was better to struggle with the win than coast to a loss. So on to the second round for the Bison, where they would go up against Biola, California. The Eagles were definitely one of the sleepers with Twin Towers in the middle. OBU and Biola entered as the top 2 scoring teams in the tournament, so a track meet was expected. But that was not to happen. In fact, no one had any idea about what was about to happen for the next 40 minutes. Coach Hoffman said it best when he claimed that OBU's second-round matchup with Biola was easily the craziest game of basketball that he's ever been a part of. Defense was the common theme as neither team scored for the first 3.5 minutes. It was going to be a battle of attrition. The team that could overcome the frustration of cold shooting and low scoring would win. And the Bison knew that although they were the nation's leader in many statistics, stats would not win any games. This would not be a game that required Bison magic. This was a battle that gave way to Bison heart and the will to win. OBU set season lows in many offensive categories by only scoring 41 points. It was the lowest scoring game in the NAIA tournament since peach baskets were hanging from post. Quinn Woldridge hit the only 3-pointer of the game for OBU to pull the Bison back to within 1 with 5 minutes to go in the game. And although OBU was known for big wins, they had been 8-0 in games decided by 8 points or less. The Bison owned a 1-point lead, but the Eagles were going to get the final shot, so they thought.
Garrison gets it into Ronaldo Butler. He'll bring it in the front court. Guarded by Bobby Connor. Lost it. Clay Martin's got the loose ball, and he'll get the gem at the buzzer with 9.3. Bison up 3. Biola needs a 3-pointer to tie it. Right wing, Matt Garrison. He'll launch the 3 on the way. Missed it. Ball tipped loose. Rocker gets it back. Is he behind the 3-point arc? 3 at the buzzer. Missed it. Bison win it. Bison win it. Bison win it. 41-38.
So, while many teams had coasted to the Elite 8 of the NAIA National Tournament, the Bison had been involved in 2 dogfights. But they were still fighting. A surprise team was OBU's quarterfinal opponent as unseeded McKendree, Illinois had advanced. But you don't knock off two seeded teams without talent, and the Bison came ready to play. For two straight games, OBU's leading scorer, Eric Cardenas, had faced big men with leaping ability. But the Bearcats had no match for the big fella, who notched a career high with 34 points, which was also an individual game high for an OBU player this season. The Bison built a 19-point lead before McKendree cut it to 7, but the Bison were starting to warm up as they held on down the stretch for the 82-73 win. For the first time since 1994, the Bison were headed back to the Final Four. Another goal reached. Another unseeded team awaited OBU in the Final Four as Point Park College of Pennsylvania surprised everyone with a quarterfinal round upset of Hawaii Pacific. The Pioneers were a run-and-gun team, and the Bison finally found their transition game as both teams came out smoking in the first half. The game was all that could have been expected in the first half, with OBU clinging to a 49-47 halftime advantage. This game was going to be decided in the second half. OBU's depth gave way to a second-half explosion as Point Park got tired while the Bison got busy. A 44-28 second-half advantage included OBU's dynamic outside duo of Quinn Woldridge and Bobby Connor lighting it up from beyond the arc in the 93-75 win. OBU was rolling, and they were now where they wanted to be all season long, playing for the national championship. It was an ironic twist of fate in the NAIA title game as the Bison faced top-seeded and number 1 Life College. The two teams were the victim of OCU in their last trip to the Final Four and were hungry for the ring. The Eagles and the Bison were the two best teams in the country, no question. The combined records entering the game were 72-4. Someone was going to get their 37th win of the season, but more importantly, a national championship. But it was a contrast in styles. Life was small but relied on their quickness. OBU knew that a half-court game would suit big men Eric Cardenas and Lamont Ford. Life came out quickly, scoring the game's first 8 points, but then OBU rallied to take a 21-19 lead. Again, the Eagles would use timely three-point shooting and relentless defense to build a 42-28 advantage. Many teams would give up, but the Bison showed their poise and determination in creeping back to a 42-37 deficit at halftime. It was a slugfest that would come down to the final half of the season, and the final half proved that at least on this night, Life was good, real good, especially at defense. OBU was forced into 24 turnovers and just could not get over the hump. The Eagles celebrated the school's first national title with a 73-64 win. Meanwhile, OBU would have to settle for second place for the 4th time in school history and the 2nd time in 5 years. Losing is never easy. Losing a national championship is even harder. It was difficult to accept that OBU's incredible season could end in defeat, especially after getting so close to the title. But time heals all wounds, and perspective on the year was found. The 1996-97 OBU Bison basketball season will go down as one of the best in school history. A school record 36 wins was attained, including a record 29 wins during the regular season. It was a perfect season at the Noble Complex where the Bison sent all 19 opponents home with a loss. The Bison made more field goals and free throws than any other OBU team in school history. They out-hustled opponents for more rebounds, showed more unselfishness with the most assists, and scored more points than all the great OBU teams of the past and present eras. Eric Cardenas was named the Conference Player of the Year, first-team All-American, and named to the NAIA National Tournament All-Tournament team. He led the Bison with 19 points and 10 rebounds a game while shooting an astounding 65% from the field. Kevin Morrissey was honored as the Defensive Player of the Year in the Sooner Athletic Conference while winning the Charles Stevenson Hustle Award at the National Tournament. Kevin also grabbed over 300 rebounds for the 2nd straight season, while he and Eric became OBU's most prolific 1-2 rebounding punch, combining for 727 rebounds at an average of over 18 per ball game. Lamont Ford was named MVP of the Sooner Athletic Conference Tournament, and he was also selected to the National Tournament first team. He was another double-figure scorer and made opposing shots in the middle hard to come by against the Bison. Clay Martin finished third in the nation in assists, while Quinn Wooldridge set a new school record with 115 three-pointers. Bobby Connor and Mike Hendren were super sophomores, averaging over 10 points a game each off of the bench. Role players like Tito Pena, Bobby Funk, Dominique Corsi, Vladimir Kachenko, Blaine Moore, Kenny Sudel, Nathan Clore, Sean Shank, Austin Whitebrot, and Richard Carmen also gave valiant efforts each time they were called upon to perform. Former Bison players Dave Niven and Lance Johnston showed the future they have in coaching, while Robert Davenport was once again an able assistant coach. And was there ever any doubt about the Sooner Athletic Conference Coach of the Year? Bob Hoffman, in his 7th season at OBU, once again put a team on the court that was ready to play and gave it their all, win or lose. But the record that most fans were glad to see broken more than any other is most games played in a season at 40, more times to see OBU Bison basketball. And the Oklahoma Baptist University Bison play a brand of basketball that is fan-friendly. Teamwork, character, hustle, pride, execution, offense, defense, intensity, and excitement. Yes, it was a great year to be a Bison player, coach, or fan. The Bison lose a lot of stars from last year's team, and once again, there will be some who expect a letdown. But those who know the Bison best know differently. One thing will always be true of OBU Bison basketball. They will be giving it all they've got, laying it all on the line, and reaching for the top.
We're a people bound together by a single heart and mind, like none who've gone before us or those we've left behind. We'll take the time, the sweat and tears to soar to worlds on high and make the goals that others set, and then we'll pass them by. We're reaching for the top, no limit to what we can do, and all together, me and you, we're gonna see it through somehow. We're reaching for the top, the goal is set, we're pressing on to greater heights and well beyond levels we've never been before. We're reaching for the top.
I just think it's a culmination of hard work these guys have put in over a lot of years. And anytime you get a chance to fulfill that opportunity with the kind of guys and the way they really care about each other, that makes it even more fun. And it makes it really good for me too.
It's a hunger that we're sharing and a thirst we all possess that keeps us moving upward in search of sweet success. We know the task before us, we know just how it's done, and like a race, we'll never quit until that race is won. We're reaching for the top, no limit to what we can do, and all together, me and you, we're gonna see it through somehow. We're reaching for the top, the goal is set, we're pressing on to greater heights and well beyond levels we've never been before. We're reaching for the top.
Serious battle, we persevered. Fellas, I don't know if you know what you accomplished. I mean, we won the conference. Some of you guys don't act like we did anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we just battled our butts off for 15, 16 games, and now everybody else has no chance of beating us.
That's right.
All right. This year they cannot, nobody else can say the conference champion. That's right, baby. And the reason we cut the net down is because we're going to do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
We do it 3 times this year. That's the first time right there. And you never let a chance go by when you have a chance to be a champion, because you never know when you get a chance to do it again.